So it is 23:48 on Sunday night at Eastern Time at May 25th, 2025. And I have Intertwinger online, which means I have Sense Atlas online. And we are now getting to the point where I can use it to do itself, use itself, and plan itself, rather. So I'm going to just go to that right now. And I'm just going to traipse through. I've just been adding stuff to this graph. So I'm just going to traipse through it. And of course I got an itchy nose. So excuse me. I've also got my dirt beer here to celebrate. Delicious dirt beer. And by delicious, I mean not delicious. So what you're seeing is Sense Atlas. This is the nascent sort of planning tool. You're looking at the original sort of set for which is IBIS. But I have been adding stuff to this because I'm trying to sort of I'm actually trying to dog food this now. I'm actually trying to use it to do its own damn job. So I'm going to just proceed through the stack here of stuff and what I've been working on over the last few weeks. So you can see that I've introduced goals, tasks, and targets. The goals are the sort of the gold ones. The tasks are the more like minty green. That palette, who knows how, where, and what that's going to end up like in the eventual future. We haven't touched the CSS for this yet. It's fine. We'll deal with it. And by we, I mean me. There's elements that I have like yet to sort of decide on how the heck to even render yet. So that's going to be like a me doodling on paper job and eventually. But the idea is that the client wanted to be able to use this thing. And fair enough, one would want to be able to use a tool. And so Sense Atlas is basically barely rates as software. Like it's like just a handful of templates from JavaScript practically that runs on top of Intertwinger, and that's like kind of the point of Intertwinger, is that stuff like this is pretty rudimentary. So, you know, the goal, and to the extent that you can see this, you should be able to see it at 1080p, is to plan projects and resources with the use of the process model ontology. Now, the process model ontology, unlike IBIS, which is half a century old, it's got a ton of implementations. People have tried it out. The process model ontology is something that I made myself, and I have never had an implementation for it because I needed to wait, 15 years from the initial. No, sorry, 14 years. From the initial cut of the process model stuff. The point is that unlike IBIS, which is half a century old, the PM ontology has never been road tested, blah, 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 several iterations. So the response to this is we put the Sense Atlas online so the client can observe its development. I want to be able to... Because, like, the issue really at hand is the fact that, like, the semantics of the actual ontology and, like, what the parts that are connecting each other mean, like, they've just never been road tested. Like, they've just never been used. And so, like, I went and I wrote out an ontology, like, based on first principles, but I never kicked the tires on it because I couldn't. Because the cost of doing that, like, it was just... like how would I even do it? The cost denominated in hours, right? And so, it basically took making Intertwinger and then porting the old IBIS tool over to what is now called Sense Atlas, so they're running on top of Intertwinger, like only now, and by now I mean like the last couple days, has it actually been possible to even entertain the idea of working on this thing. So the idea is to get this goddamn freaking thing online. No, that was the next thing, was get intertwingler the hell online. Now, there was an issue with that, which was that the address space is already occupied by all the stuff. Like, where the hell am I gonna put it? And furthermore, which actually I should add here, is that intertwingler needed, actually I probably did elsewhere, but intertwingler needed to, like, I had designed it to run multiple sites at once. Like, the idea was it was like an application server, and any site in your org could run on top of it, and probably should, even if you were just proxying stuff through it, but that's a different discussion. So what do we do about this? So one of the issues was to migrate the stuff from the old prototype. Now, there were 40 domains worth of stuff in there. 16 of them were client extranets, and then like 20 of them were just like stuff that I coalesced into the other 20, basically. So 16 were client extranets, they just mapped 1-to-1, and then like the other 24 mapped into 4, more or less. So getting intertwingler the hell online entailed, first of all, I tried to install it on the on DigitalOcean on my VPS. So I installed it on my VPS, and I found, first of all, the first snag was that the rack maintainers, so rack is Ruby's, actually I think they probably came first now that I think of it, WSGI is Python's thing. It's like, all of the sort of dynamic, programming languages have this. It's a thing for making it easier to write basically CGI scripts, and then like not have to care whether it's CGI, FastCGI, standalone HTTP, et cetera, and you can write a much shorter script, and you don't have to think about a bunch of crap that, so that's what those are. Turned out that, so I was going to install this as FastCGI. Now, I was going to install it as FastCGI for a reason, which had to do with authentication, which is not showing up here, but I ran into trouble with it anyway. So the thing about FastCGI is it shows up, like it basically exposes the inside of the HTTP request. So like, unlike vanilla HTTP, you can see, stuff that's already been figured out. So like, if the user is authenticated, for example, which was the exact thing that I needed to figure out. So that actually, basically the rack people eliminated FastCGI. I had to dig it out of old code. I had to update it. It didn't work. I mean, to the extent that it worked until it stopped, and it just sort of like lost the connection. And it's like, I do not want to have to figure out that like failure mode right now. Like, I don't want to figure out the minutia of like socket coding of like why FastCGI doesn't work. And anyway, it was really freaking slow. So I just installed intertwingler on my dev server. So here it is there. It turns out that DigitalOcean, the VPS that I'm paying for, is really freaking slow. And like, I don't want to pay the money at the moment for, something that's going to be fast enough, or like, some kind of Docker thing or whatever. Like, that's just going to be a shit ton of money. I don't want to pay for it right now. I have fiber and a 1.7 millisecond ping to the server anyway. So, the only thing is I don't love having to share my dev server or have it conscripted into production. So the issue at hand at the moment is access control. And so I have the, it's like a standalone, like applet, whatever, called forget passwords, because you can. Because it does the like forgot my password loop, and you can That's just basically how I've been protecting stuff. It's been kind of great because, any org, I can just they're a whatever.com, I'll just put whatever.com in the list, and I don't have to go and provision passwords for, people who need to look at stuff. It just automatically enrolls them, which is great. So I was sort of faced with an issue. It's okay, so the situation was, I'm no longer putting Intertwingler on the server as a FastCGI daemon. I am now putting it on the dev server, which is much faster, as a standard HTTP daemon. And so I know, look, this right now, I'm fudging a user for this. This is not logged in. Anybody can come in and freaking mess with it. So please don't do that right away. But also, the bulk of the domains on this thing are extranets. And there is a prototype in the way, a non-functioning prototype in the way that needs to get out of there. And then they're also already running, all of the extranets are already running, basically, they could be dropped in to, and those are barely getting any traffic anyway. And they're going to be, all access controlled anyway. And so, the thing that has been concerned me and the thing that has, kept me from putting Intertwingler online has to do with the fact that there's no internal caching yet, because I have a very particular way I intend to do that. And it is, if it gets any serious amount of traffic, it's just going to blow up and set stuff on fire, right? It's just too much compute to deal with it. So, I need access control because I want to put this thing online, again, so that my client can see what I'm seeing and he can be able to see the latest version of everything. And then that in turn has to do with the fact that the process model ontology is just it's just going to need to be iterated because it just has never been used. And I can already tell there's parts of it that are how do we do this part? And how do we do that part? We're going to need to iterate it. And so, again, getting this thing online has been an essential aspect of that. But to discuss the matter of access control, so the original idea was, right now, the forget password is it is a FastCGI app that uses, FastCGI has different modes. It's got the content mode, and then it's got an authorizer mode, and then it's got a filter mode. So there is an auth module that pipes FastCGI through it, and then you can sort of smuggle credentials out of it and so on. And so the idea there is that the plan is that Rack, the framework has got a middleware sort of idea. And all it is just a function that wraps it and does stuff. It just does logic based on whatever. And if it does one thing, it passes it down the line. And if it does some other thing, it doesn't. There's the FastCGI app that can stay on the server, and there's the middleware. And the idea is that the middleware would go and get embedded into Twingler. Now, it had always been my plan to turn forget passwords into a middleware. I was originally going to implement it like that, and then I just didn't. But the con side is that embedding forget passwords into Intertwingler is going to severely complicate and compromise the configuration for both systems. So I've got the edge, and then I've got the origin, right? And the edge is going to have where does the auth go? And if the origin is just a standalone, it's Puma, so it's a standalone application, server for running Ruby code. Where is the auth going to go? And it's okay, so if I put the auth infrastructure into, wrap it into Intertwingler, I'm going to have to figure out a way how that's going to be configured. How do I pass configuration parameters into it? I'm going to have to figure out a whole bunch of crap to make that go. I would really prefer not to do that. So the thing that I'm thinking of doing, and this is something that I was going to do today, but some brain genius at 4:30 in the morning decided to have a concert to himself in his car at 120 decibels playing pop punk from the 90s for an hour. So I feel like ass, and I just couldn't freaking manage the brain power to do this, but I could do this brain power instead. So the idea is I leave forget passwords, the authentication module on the server, and hack both it and Intertwingler especially to transmit and receive a JWT. So JWT is a JSON web token. It can be signed, it can be encrypted, it can be PKI, it can be all sorts of stuff. They're actually, like, I haven't used these yet. And the other thing about this too, which I don't think I wrote down, no, that's okay, is that, like, I had been trying to puzzle over, like, how the heck I was going to do authentication across, like, reverse proxy connections anyway. Like, I didn't, because like when Intertwingler matures, it's eventually going to get to the point where, like, there can be microservices all over the place. And, like, what you don't want is you don't want, like, a server-side request forgery or something like that. So the idea would be, like, you could have elements of the sort of the daisy chain of requests or whatever could be, basically protected by JWT, and those are just a bearer token. So that was sort of the idea there, was that a JWT could do the job of having access to remote user rather, in FastCGI. And so that way we can just get rid of FastCGI altogether and just use reverse proxying over vanilla HTTP. HTTPS doesn't really matter at that point. But the idea is yeah. So, and then the JWT is going to have like a PSK, pre-shared key, but it is, and you can see we're down in the fruit. The one thing I do like about this visualization is that we can tell when we're in the weeds, because all the rest of the concerns are, like, off in a corner somewhere. So the JWT, can have a pre-shared key. The authentication module on the actual edge server that, has the domain on it, will just do the authentication on its own. No configuration has to be changed. Like, literally what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, like, copy install the new version over the old version. There's also the matter that it uses Rack 2, which uses FastCGI. I can't upgrade it to Rack 3 anyway. So, like, trying to mess with that together was going to be a whole freaking thing. So this, I think, like, the JWT thing, I think, is actually the least pain, and it also has the most gain because, like, again, I needed to figure this out anyway. And so I guess, since it's after midnight at this point, tomorrow's job is going to be to implement that JWT handoff. And then what we should be able to see is that at that point I can bring all of the extranets online. So all of those client extranets can come online. And this thing I can also protect as well, auth-wise. Now, the access, what you typically would do is you can set up, like, a login resource, and that gives you the cookie, basically, and then, like, downstream that it translates that into a bearer token, JWT. And so, like, what I'm thinking here is, like, in the corner you would have the logout. It would be switched. If there's no user, you log in. If there is a user, you log out, that kind of thing. So I am looking, like, basically the last week of May. Like, I wanted to get this thing to the point that I could do as much front-end dev as possible so that, like, again, it's the semantics that I'm concerned about. That's what this whole odyssey that, like, dragged every freaking concern under the sun into it and along with it was to get this bastard online so that you can see what I can see, and then any of the weirdnesses in the semantics, again, like, I'm looking at stuff and I'm like, that just doesn't make sense. We've got to change that. Like, just this dependency, for example, like, is that really necessary? I don't know. There's also conditioned on, like, let me find, it doesn't matter actually. Yeah, like condition of or something like that. Like, I don't know if that's going to be a thing. So those are, like, issues going forward. There are other aspects of it that are just, again, like what it needs is it needs instance data, and it needs like, does this make sense? Like, do we need a thing? Like one of the things, for instance, that like I want to get rid of this because this no longer makes sense. This is just stuff that was around, 12 years ago, because it made sense at the time to be able to change these things, but it doesn't actually make sense anymore. Which is why, by the way, I've left these blank. You can see there's no widgets on the side. Like the reason why this doesn't fill out is because it's probably the flex box is just like, oh no, where's the thing? This is gonna be done. These fill in, like they these don't necessarily work yet, to the best of my knowledge. I need to figure out how I want to deal with those. They do autofill. You can tell I'm the only one in here, but like that's me. So they do autofill. I don't know if they actually work yet. I don't want to do it because I'm not going to mess up the thing. Upgrading positions into tasks and upgrading issues into goals, that kind of thing. I haven't figured out how the UI of that is going to work yet. But again, this was the point of this thing, was to get this thing into a state that you can see what I can see, and the priorities and the things to get it up and get it effective and functioning get dealt with. So anyway, I'm going to go to bed, or I might watch a movie, but I'll talk to you on Monday.